things. We're going to start labeling the upper extremity here. So we're going to start in the shoulder region, okay, and then move down towards the hand. Now the first part here, you see this term listed up here called the rotator cuff. Okay, the rotator cuff is a group of four muscles. Okay, and these four muscles help to add stability to a relatively unstable but highly mobile joint. So the first muscle in our rotator cuff, and we use this acronym SITS, all right, to help us remember what the rotator cuff muscles are. So the first S is supra, all right, spinatus. Okay, that's just the muscle there. You can see on my diagram, all right, you don't have this in your book, that sits above the spine of the scapula. The second one, the I, is the infraspinatus. We'll be labeling some of these here. Okay, infraspinatus, and that is the muscle that sits on the posterior side of the scapula, below the spine of the scapula. That's infraspinatus. The third is teres minor. All right. And the fourth is on the front of the scapula, and that's called subscapularis. Okay, so those are the four. You want to know those. Okay, the sits muscles, those are our rotator cuff muscles. So they help hold the humerus into the glenoid fossa a little bit more effectively and safely. So here you can see this is the anterior view of the scapula. Here's subscapularis, sits right on the front, and it crosses over the front of the glenohumeral joint. We look on the back portion here, you can see supraspinatus above the spine of the scapula. Then you got infraspinatus directly below the spine of the scapula, and then adjacent to infraspinatus, but still inferior to it, is teres minor. And all three of these, well, infraspinatus and teres minor go over the posterior portion of the glenohumeral joint, where supraspinatus comes down from over the top and inserts down on the top. All right. You don't have this in your book, but you might have to kind of finagle and kind of wrestle around with it. It's a different angle. I don't know why it's not in there, okay? But if you look for the spine of the scapula right here, you can see right above it, that is supraspinatus. Okay, the other ones you do have, okay? Like this one here. All right, so you can see all of this is the infraspinatus muscle. This is not. That's teres minor. And what I tell folks is, okay, on some of these models, and you might see it on your test, all right, if you see this blood vessel on this muscle here, then you know from this model that it's teres minor. All right, we flip over to this model here. Now look, infraspinatus, I'm outlining the whole thing here. I know it looks like it's two different colors. All right, this looks more white and this looks more red. Okay, but all of this is infraspinatus. We already saw this muscle before. That's teres major. You probably already have that labeled. Okay, right below it, that's the latissimus dorsi muscle. And then you can see, all right, the trapezius muscle borders infraspinatus, all right, medially. And you can barely see it, but poking out right here, that's teres minor. Just a little bit right there. If I get rid of that, I can barely outline it here for you. Right there. That's teres minor in there. So here you can see it on this model here. So I tell folks, if you see a blood vessel and it's zoomed in this close, all right, that is teres minor. All right, let's flip it over and look at the front of the scapula. Okay, now on the test too, you don't have to write out rotator cuff, subscapularis. You can just write out subscapularis muscle. And on the test, okay, you just have to write M period. You don't have to write out the whole word muscle. Okay, so subscapularis M period is acceptable. All right, so there is the rotator cuff muscle, subscapularis on the front. Okay. Just a quick review. All right, since we are on the upper extremity, here's the deltoid muscle from the posterior view. Okay, you probably already have this labeled, but just to kind of review. All right, what muscle is this right here? That's trapezius. Right on, right on, right on. Does anyone remember what this muscle is here? That's right, rhomboid minor. Remember, the minor is above the major, so that's rhomboid minor. This is rhomboid major. It's found in between the scapula and the spine here. Okay? And then this guy here, you can see kind of peeking out. That's the levator scapula muscle. Okay? It's attaching on here to that superior angle of the scapula. It goes up towards the neck. And here, you should have this labeled. That's splenius capitis, right there. Splenius capitis. Here's your erector spinae muscle too. Okay. Okay. Here's the deltoid from the anterior view. Okay. And then this muscle right here, that's the pectoralis major muscle right here. It's that big chest muscle. All right, and then here's the lateral view of the deltoid muscle, right here. Okay, so we're going to move away from the shoulder now, and we're going to move into the actual brachium, okay? So, talking about the upper extremity, okay? You have your shoulder joint, your glenohumeral joint, and then you go down to your elbow joint, where the humerus is. All right, that is referred to as the arm or the brachium. Okay, from the elbow out to your hand, that is known as the forearm or the antebrachium. So we're now going to move into the brachium here. Okay, now if we look here, just to kind of give you some perspective, this is the inside, all right, or the medial view of your upper extremity. Here's the palm of your hand. Okay. Here's the palm of your hand. So this is the medial view, or the inside of your arm. Okay? Here's the anterior side. Here's the posterior side. Okay? Or the front and the back. So this muscle that sits right here. Oh, let me slide that over. This muscle that sits right here, that's the biceps brachii. Okay? Biceps because there's two heads to it. Brachii, because we're in the brachium, we're in the arm. Okay, biceps, two heads, brachii. It's the most superficial or anterior muscle in your brachium of your arm here. Okay, so when bodybuilders are flexing their arm, which way is the beach? This is the muscle that's popping up like that. Okay, now I'm going to flip over our model. We're going to look at the same muscle, but on the lateral view, on the outside. So I am drawing this blue line here to separate the biceps brachii from another muscle. So the biceps brachii goes from here to here. Okay, what I'm coloring in, that's a different muscle. We'll learn that in a second. That is not part of the biceps brachii. Okay, biceps brachii helps to flex the shoulder and flex the elbow. Okay, next one. Flip it over. On the medial view here, you can see this muscle on the back side of the arm. Whoops, sorry. Slide it over. That's the triceps brachii. Now, guess what? Triceps telling me that it has three heads. Okay? Triceps brachii is located in the brachium, the arm there. This is the muscle on the back. Okay, triceps brachii has three heads. So I'm going to flip it over, we'll look at it from the lateral view, okay? And it's pretty much going to be all of this, all right, below that blue line. Because again, this is a different muscle in here. We haven't labeled this muscle yet. We will in a second. Okay, that's, whoops, triceps brachii. All right, now let's label that muscle. That muscle is called brachialis. Really original, but it's good. Okay, this is one of the strongest arm flexors, is the brachialis muscle. All right, so in case you're wondering where that is, it's right here. That's brachialis. We see it on the lateral view, but we don't see it on the medial view because we got another muscle on the medial view that I want to show you. Okay, so let's flip the arm back over. Okay, and you can see this big long fella right here. That's coracobrachialis. Now we named this one because it attaches onto the coracoid process. Check it out. Remember the coracoid process located on our scapula? Okay, we had two processes on the scapula, the acromion, which is at the very end of the spine of the scapula, and then we had the process that was more anterior to it, which is called the coracoid process. So again, this is called the coracobrachialis muscle. Here's the coracoid process right there. You can also see that the long head of the biceps brachii attaches onto that. Alrighty, now we've seen this muscle already, but let's show it again. There's subscapularis. All right, that's all of this muscle here. All right, but we do have a muscle right below it. Okay, we've seen it from the posterior view. Now we can see it from the anterior view, or medial view, excuse me. There's teres major. Okay. Good so far? I'm about to blow your mind now because we're going to move into the forearm. The forearm's a little bit more challenging. Not too bad, okay? We get into the forearm. The forearm is made up of two compartments. The flexor compartment, which flexes the wrist and the hand and the fingers, and then the extensor compartment, which extends the wrist, the hand, and the fingers. Flexor compartment's on the front of the forearm. The extensor compartment's on the back, all right? So we use this muscle here. It's called brachioradialis, okay? It's on the same side of your forearm as the thumb. Do not call it this muscle, but it is referred to as the beer drinking muscle. Because literally when you bring a cup or can of soda or whatever up to your mouth, all right, you're using that muscle to help flex your elbow, okay? I use it as an anatomical landmark because everything on the front side of your forearm here is the flexor compartment. When we rotate your forearm over, and we're looking here at the back portion or the posterior side, okay, all of this is the extensor compartment. So where you see that black, yellow line, all right, and where that arrow is pointing, it's showing you the brachioradialis, okay, which is, you can see it a little bit on the posterior view here. Okay, I'm going to flip back to the previous slide. Okay, so you can see how we're just going to twist the forearm over a little bit to reveal part of the brachioradialis on this view. Okay, so let's go over some of the muscles of the flexor compartment. We're going to start with the first one here that's closest to the cubital fossa, which is that area here. In which the biceps tendon inserts on. All right, this is called the pronator teres muscle. And it tells you, its name tells you exactly what it does. It pronates the arm. Okay? So it's that short little muscle there, and it attaches on to the common flexor tendon. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the forearm over and go to the extensor side. All right, and you can see, all right, remember this is brachioradialis right here, below that yellow-black line. Now on the other side of that yellow-black line is, whoops, sorry, there we go. Extensor carpi radialis longus. Now look at the name. Extensor carpi is wrist. Radialis is telling you which side of your forearm. If we're on the thumb side, we're on the radial side. That's where the radius, the bone, is going to articulate with the thumb side. Okay? So this tells you what this muscle is. It extends the wrist on the radial side, and it's the longer or bigger muscle, right, of the other muscle that has a similar name, except it's just shorter. That other muscle is called extensor carpi radialis brevis. Oops, I'm cutting it off, sorry. So extensor carpi radialis longus is right here. Okay? And then brachioradialis is here, the beer drinking muscle. All right, we're going to stay on the extensor side here. We're going to go to this next muscle. All right, and this one is called extensor digitorum muscle. Now, if you look, here's the muscle belly, and then if you follow it down, it gives off a whole bunch of tendons. 1, 2, 3. All right, all these tendons go on the back side of your digits and hand. So it helps, all right, to extend or straighten your fingers out and your wrist. All right, so this muscle goes to more than one digit. All right, let's move over one more muscle on the extensor side. And that's the extensor digiti minimi. Now, digiti minimi is referring to the smallest digit of your hand, your pinky. So if you follow this muscle belly down, it gives off one tendon and it goes off to the pinky. Right here. Don't confuse that with extensor digitorum. Extensor digitorum gives off several tendons. Extensor digiti minimi only goes to the one. Extensor digiti minimi. All right, and then the next muscle over, this guy right here, okay, extensor carpi ulnaris, right? Again, we know the first two words. Extensor is telling you the action of the muscle. Carpi, the wrist. Ulnaris means we're on the ulna side of the forearm. Well, we know the ulna is on the same side as the pinky. So this muscle goes over here towards the wrist on the pinky side. All right, that's it for the muscles of the extensor compartment. I'm going to show you this picture because you don't have it in your book, but I'm going to show you the same muscle, the extensor carpi ulnaris muscle, but from a view of where your arm is on its side here. Okay? So here's the extensor carpi ulnaris muscle here. You can see it on a different model here. All right, this muscle here we're going to see in a second is called the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. Right? It's on the flexor side of your forearm, on the front. So this is the back, this is the front. Okay? So this is posterior, this is anterior. All right, and you can see, well, it's kind of cut off here because of the quality of the slide here. But this muscle, the tendon, goes down and inserts here onto the wrist. So it causes extension of the wrist. All right, so now we're going to label this muscle. All right, very similar name. It's known as the, oh, hold on. Let me show you on that other slide first. All right, here you can see it. Okay, so here's the flexor carpi ulnaris. This is the extensor carpi ulnaris. All right, now we'll look at it from the anterior compartment, or the flexor compartment. So you can see it's way over here on the pinky side. So if you look at the muscle belly, it travels down and it inserts here. It inserts here onto the wrist. And it tells you what it does. It's flexor, carpi, ulnaris. It flexes the wrist. Look, I know when sometimes when people take the test, they get a little bit nervous. They don't know what the thing is, or what muscle it is, or whatever and they might start making up words. If you're going to make up a word to name one of these muscles, if it's on the flexor compartment, throw flexor in there somewhere. All right? If it's on the back side of the forearm, put extensor. Maybe that will jar a memory or whatnot. Okay? All right. All right, we've already seen that slide. Okay, well, this muscle is pronator teres, right here. This next muscle right next to it, all right, is the flexor carpi radialis muscle. Again, if you follow the muscle, when it transitions into the tendon, it goes right here to the wrist. On the thumb side, so that's the flexor carpi radialis muscle. Okay, and then the next muscle after that, right next to it, this is called ulnaris longus. This muscle goes right here towards the carpal tunnel. If you take your thumb and your pinky finger and you approximate, touch them to each other, and then flex your wrist like this, you'll see the tendon pop out right here. That's the ulnaris longus muscle. That's the muscle that gives off its tendon that goes right towards the carpal tunnel here. And then the last muscle that you have to know for the upper extremity is this guy right here, anconis. What am I looking at here? Well, look here at the larger model. All right, we're looking at the back side of the forearm here, okay, right by the elbow here. It's tough to see, but the triceps brachii, oops, I don't know how to spell that. All right, the triceps brachii muscle is up here. Here's brachioradialis. All right, here is extensor carpi radialis longus brevis right over here. So it's this kind of strap-like muscle that comes across near the elbow. You don't have this in your book, but this might help you out a little bit. So this is the elbow, the olecranon process. Okay. So you can see that this is just medial to it, and conius is. All right, I don't have time to go over the other stuff, so I guess I'll have to let you guys go. But you did awesome. We finished up the nervous system. We're actually right where we're supposed to be, and that hardly ever happens. So that's good. That's definitely good. Keep going over the stuff. All I can say is repetition. All right, we really kind of slowed things down here a little bit. We had a little extra time to go over some of the material. Any questions from anybody? All right, please take the time to go over these slides here. It's truly, truly important that you do so. All right, if there's nothing, go ahead, make sure you all sign out before you leave. And anyone at home, any questions about anything? Okay. If not, I'm going to stop recording, and it'll probably crash.